We're ready. We're getting ready to go live, so it should be about 20 seconds.
You can chat with each other in the chat if you're unable to speak with regard to the tech. Hello, welcome to Common Words Shots in the Dark 2. We have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and perhaps even 10 if I count myself, fabulous writers who've been working on their crime fiction shorts for a year or so. And we've been delighted to see the project come to fruition. The book itself is going to be a digital publication, which will be on the Issue platform. And my role tonight as your host, Pete Kalu, is actually to introduce you to each writer in turn and to perhaps coax them to do a short reading from their work and maybe tell us a little bit about how they came to write the work or anything that particularly interests them around the genre. So first up tonight is going to be Deborah Chatterjee. Deborah, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Are you able to read? Do you have your story ready?
Yes, I've got it ready. I just need to flip to another page. I'm going to read for about 2 minutes, but if it goes on longer, you can stop me.
Okay then. Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is called The Empty Chair. I was born on the last day of summer, the 21st of September to be precise. I'll refrain from telling you the year, though at some point you'll work out how old I am. My mother decided to call me Autumn. Originality was never her forte, and like autumn prepares us for winter, my birth led the way into a vast, cold darkness. I don't remember much about my early childhood because it was about other people, me as a passive spectator watching from the sidelines of a sheltered life, my early, unformative years, and a blur of family crises. But then something happened that plays in my mind like a film on repeat. I know the nuance of how each line is delivered and all the intricacies of the unfolding plot. It was an incident so insignificant on many levels, but one that changed the course of my life forever and made me who I am right at this very moment. Okokemi? Good morning, sir. Tenman Clare? Good morning, sir. Singer Robin? Singer Robin? And so arose a question that I've been asking myself most of my life. Who is Robin Singer? Or dare I ask, who was Robin Singer? I imagined quite vividly that the person behind the name was a girl, and so Robin became Robin with a Y. I'd be quite disappointed if after all this time, Robin did turn out to be a boy.
Lovely.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't meant to stop. I had a bit more. I was just trying to scroll down. Would you like me to stop?
No, carry on. Your last paragraph. Yeah.
So I'll just skip. I'm skipping a couple of paragraphs, actually. So this is the last one. 20 years after the incident, when my cousin was pregnant with her first child, she asked me what names I liked. I declared with childish enthusiasm that Robin was indeed the perfect unisex name. She laughed in mock disgust. It makes me think of a bird on a Christmas card and a diminutive man in red tights. 6 months later, she called her newborn son Paris. He'd been conceived while she and her partner had been holidaying in the capital. Like I said, originality doesn't run in the family. And yes, I've kept it short.
Well, thank you very much. That's a fabulous story. The idea of hearing of someone who disappears and then pondering about where they went, who they were. Weirdly, it actually happened to me. Maybe it happened to many of us. In my first day at high school, there was somebody who was read off their class register for maybe 3 or 6 months, and they never appeared. And your mind does boggle, doesn't it? And from there, a script appears. But it's a very subtle story in the sense that it doesn't shout crime, does it? What made you take that path, or what led you to there?
Yeah, especially at the beginning. I think the passage that I've just read, you might think, oh, where is this going? And if you didn't know this was about crime fiction, you might think it was a very light-hearted piece. So sorry, you have to repeat your question.
Yeah, it's a story that doesn't have a murder in the first paragraph. You know, it doesn't have any of the obvious signs of a crime story. And I thought that was a very high risk way to go about it, but at the same time refreshing. So is that something that you've done before? Is it just you just decided this is the way I'm going to go about it?
Yeah, well, I think what's great about short stories is that you can afford to be a bit more experimental, and actually because they're short, I think you can play around a bit. And I did honestly start with the name Robin. And that came about because I love robins. So I think that thought came into my mind about having a story with a robin in it. And normally I kind of know where I'm going with a story, and this time it really felt like a journey. I thought I'll see where it's going to take me, and I as you'll find out later on in the story, the protagonist works in a mortuary, and I'm quite obsessed with mortuaries and all the sort of ghoulish stuff that occurs inside.
Let's leave it there. That's quite an intriguing last line.
Yeah, anyway, I knew that I wanted that to appear in the story, but yeah, I wanted it to be subtle. I think something that really fascinates me with real life crime is that actually these sort of criminals that we hear about in the news, they're often, like someone's son, daughter, they're a neighbour, they're someone that you'd never think could commit a crime. I mean, only yesterday, we heard about this really nice, friendly looking nurse that's been arrested for the third time for murdering babies, and that's a massive shock because she seems so nice, and I think that's a route I wanted to sort of take, that you're kind of wondering all the time, gosh, is this person that I can kind of relate to on many levels, is this a person capable of committing a crime?
I suppose it blurs into the uncanny in that sense, that it's the unknown that creates the anxiety.
Yeah.
Deborah, I'm going to have to stop you there now because our kind of time is up. But thank you ever so much for such an insightful conversation around your story.
Thank you.
Good luck with your other writing. If you make it back, we'll probably still be here about 8 chatting again if you get back on that. But if not, disappearances are part and parcel of your story.
Thank you, Peter.
No worries. Okay, so disappearances and mortuaries. I'm not sure if that connects particularly in an explicit way with Dipali Das's story, but I'm going to invite Dipali next to read from her story for 2 minutes, and then perhaps we can have a short conversation about it. Is that okay, Dipali? You with us? You have your story?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all good. And by the way, I love the, if I may use a fancy word, the metonymy of this, and the fact that we've got 9 faces, or each maybe do their own thing. It's very much in the genre of crime. So carry on, Dipali.
Okay, so Holy Island. The tide was washing onto the causeway. Being accelerated and the front tyres scattered seawater. Not trusting the mirrors, she turned and stared through the back window. Nothing. Only the rising sea and the rapidly submerging road. As Holy Island neared, she saw the outline of the castle and its ragged ramparts on the hill. Eventually, she found a car park, threw some coins at the machine, and retrieved the ticket. Hers was the only vehicle there. She grabbed a flask and blanket from the boot and huddled into the back seat. sipping tea and trying to keep warm. The car began to sway as the wind started up. She pulled the blanket tightly around her shoulders, lay down, and then pattered around the seat. Where's it gone? She stretched to reach deep under the driver's seat. The package was still there. Exhausted, she slid into a fitful sleep. 3 short, sharp blows, blood pouring in the lick of a wolf. Red hairs clotted at the mouth. The smack of the temple. Smack. Hello, miss. Miss. Hey. Vina peered out. It was still dark, but the outline of a man was clearly visible. Police. How did they know she was here? He knocked on the window again and signalled for it to be opened. She hauled herself up and did so. Morning, miss. Morning. He glanced around the inside of the car. Here for the sunrise? As she nodded, Vina reached under the driver's seat and pushed the package further back.
Lovely, lovely. I love that line with the line that says, yeah, very good, Shahira. You're teaching me my manners. We can clap on the line. Or maybe we can do the wave on that. But yeah, the here for the sunrise is that kind of the introduction of a lot of tension, irony as well, of course, in this. It was a lovely and strange opening. Strange for me anyway. I'm a landlocked kind of person, and you had the car driving, the tide washing in onto the causeway. What made you write from that position, from that location?
So honestly, I love the sea. I've said to my 2 young children, all you have to do is buy me a house by the sea and I'll be happy. I don't want anything else. And I've always had this thing about trying to visit Holy Island. If most people are aware that it's a little causeway and then it just covers up by the sea twice a day, and I just love the fact that nature is in control of something and dictating to humans instead of the other way around. And it's just very atmospheric. And there was, if I'm correct, there used to be monks that lived on the island, and they were just going about the business, writing books, playing chess or whatever they were doing, and attacked by the Vikings. I think that's quite a sad sort of story. So
it's a great atmosphere. It's a great atmosphere. You have quite a long dialogue run at the beginning, with the tap on the window, the police coming and asking them, commenting on the sunset, and you. There are writers who are have an aversion to dialogue, and writers who love it. Where do you position yourself?
I'm definitely a fan of conversational dialogue. That's for sure. See, this is the thing, Pete. I'm not that patient a person, so crime does not come naturally to me because I'm like, oh, just tell me who did it. I'm not that interested about the process. So this was really interesting because I just had to slow it down and become more patient and try and develop the characters a bit more, and less dialogue. I had to make it less chatty because my background's sort of playwriting and stuff. So yeah, so that was a really interesting process for me to go through.
And you've got this element of the red wolf. Is a Little Red Riding Hood thing creeping into this story? Is this just coincidence?
No, that was just I think it was just a bit of a cutaway from the whole thing of like coming into the island, and is it going to be a nightmare being here? Is it going to just a symbolic thing of going from reality to dream back to reality? I think that was just that process.
Yeah, if I may use some of these big words I've read in the dictionaries and that, it has occasionally these modernist touches, where you slip straight into a very close consciousness of the character. And at other times it's in the third person, isn't it? She, and other times it puts a certain distance between the reader and the character. And but I think you control it brilliantly. And as you know, I really do think this story has legs. It works as a short story, but it has the DNA for becoming a much longer narrative. Have you thought about developing it?
Yes. In reality, though, Pete, like I say, I've never written anything longer than about, well, not counting my dissertation, which is 18,000, which was long, but apparently that's not even a quarter of a novel, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, all you do is you just don't think about the length. You just write a series of 10 short stories. If each one is like 3,000 to 5,000 words, you've almost got your novel. You don't kind of worry about the length. But I really love that story. So thank you very much for writing it, and we look forward to seeing it sail on the sea of literary reception. I'm trying, folks. I'm trying to work some metaphors in here.
No, Pete, thank you as well for all your support, working on it and everything. Okay.
Okay, my pleasure. So I'm now going to turn to another writer whose techniques are certainly beguiling and therefore also interesting. I'll mention his name. Actually, there's the clue in the genre, Kushik. But I'm not certain whether you're going to privilege us with a reading of your text or whether you have it.
Happily, I've managed to find a version of it here. So,
right, excellent. In that case, take it away. Yeah. The floor's yours.
And I'll start at the beginning. So this is an extended pause. Snout to tail feather is a moment of surprise. Leaves, yes, in a clustered mulch, but nothing else to properly suggest that here once stood a flyer, worm in beak, preparing to head back to his home with the wriggling spoils before he was ambushed in those final moments. Somewhere in that finely calibrated store of memories, an image flattens, beak and claw, then shrieks and the floor, in a dance as old as the mud, a mortal carousel of feathers and fur, transmitted through mother's milk or bird song, their respective folklores of weightlessness and stealth. Both know how this dance must end, in the death rattle of a spiteful embrace. But it still comes as a shock each time, the flapping quickly losing its intensity, the squawks just as efficiently subdued. This time it truly is misfortune which befalls the bird, as his assailant really shouldn't have been there, wouldn't have been, but for his own overriding need for safety. Just moments before, he himself had come under fire from an unpredictable human hand. The two legs, whose home the cat shared, was becoming increasingly erratic in his moods and actions. This time he'd launched a spherical object, which the cat was yet to recognize as an ashtray, and it had narrowly avoided the ginger's head. Observing Two Legs with the sublime concentration of his own tigerish forebears, the ginger now recognized the pattern. When Two Legs put the firewater to his lips and lit the fire sticks, which he also placed in his mouth, his behavior would often change. It was mostly when he drank the firewater, though. That was when the shouting would begin, ending with one or another object being launched into space. When the cat had been a kitten, the Two Legs hadn't been this way. Actually, there'd been another Two Legs then, and she was much nicer. They were all far happier then, and he remembered the sounds of laughter and the musical sing-song of the Lady Two Legs' voice announcing that he should come get it, Mr. Tibbs. The longed-for rattle of the hard, bird-scented dry treats as they cascaded into his bowl. But the sounds changed once the Lady Two Legs left, a sullen void opening up in a space evacuated by warmth. The stale smell of fire sticks, the raised pitch brought on by the firewater, few strokes, no treats, the only sanctuary, this garden, its wildness, the tree bark to pheromone, the trunk, nature's ready-made scratching post, the branches, a postprandial hideaway. The sound of the Two Legs' voice is not friendly or kind. unlike the lady two legs who used to live here. And Ginger's snout, that marvelous piece of equipment, picks up the airborne current of irritation, whiskery antennae settling on the undertow of threat. All there in a sound, a pickled breath, a clumsiness in the weeds. Mr. Tibbs, the sound of it, just doesn't appeal when growled by this two legs. Later, Ginger will make off with the bird in his mouth, wings broken, spirit already combining with the mulch. He will not be coming back to this place.
Thank you ever so much, Kushik. What a wonderful reading. And it's quite a left field idea to come from the consciousness of a cat. And I think the reader is puzzled at first. Certainly I was, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then rather like a camera that suddenly comes into focus, you realize that the reason that for your own uncertainty is that you're in the mind of a cat here, not the mind of a human being. Where did you get that idea from?
Well, strangely enough, I mean, there is that, that bit of coincidence where there was a day a while back where I was thinking about, okay, I desperately need some tea. You know that phrase, I could murder a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, I can murder a cup of tea at exactly the same moment as this cat rather magnificently made himself known in a kitchen. And, you sort of just think, well, okay, our better selves sometimes reside outside of our human consciousness. You look at the state of the world.
Yeah.
Look at what bipeds have done to this world. We've loused things up royally, and yet you see this cat, and you think, well, okay, he's arrived here. We're supposed to take a break, have a Kit Kat. That's what they used to tell us on the ads, and yet the kitty was there in the flesh, and he made me think beyond myself. What's actually going on in the break? What's happening in that beautiful, enigmatic mind that only gives us a little glimpse as to what's going on? What else is hidden out there in the mulch? What's in the garden? What's unspoken? And really the story just took on from there. Because partly it was a boredom and a disgust with my fellow human animal. Certain individuals in particular, which I suppose led me in the direction of something a little more animist, because the ecology, the wind, the waves, the animals, the beasts, the sun, the rain, this was all there before us, and hopefully it will outlive us too. But in the midst of all of that, there's a whole heap of crime, and there's a lot of bodies and broken wings. And that started me thinking about, okay, the animals supply us too with a forensic consciousness. Anyway, that was the opening of the story. That's where it came from.
I guess it's a big leap of the imagination. I'm actually starting to think about crime. You know, that in the eyes of the cat, the death of the bird is not a crime. It's a holy act or ritual for us, you know. But it's certainly an interesting way. I think I read one story which was in the mind of a fish, and that's also mind-boggling. And there's room with, as perhaps Deborah was saying, within the short story for these kinds of experiments. But I think you have been writing other pieces too. Do you have something? I'm going to invite you to a short promo. What have you got out recently?
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. Very kind of you, Pete. No, I do have a novel out actually at the moment. It's my debut novel. Another kind of concrete. Tragically, there are no cats in the novel, but big or small, but it's out there anyway. It's out on Jacaranda. and it came out earlier this year, slightly kiboshed by the pandemic. So it was a curious moment for this this long form to appear in the world, because suddenly the world shut down. And yeah, so it's been a little bit strange, a little bit odd. I'm still delighted the book is out there, but it could certainly use some love. And the more eyes that are on it, the happier that makes me. I mean, there's again, there's a similar thread in the novel to this short story, which goes back to the 1970s and a moment which we seem doomed to repeat in our present of acute tribalism, racial violence, and some fairly stalwart attitudes across the political spectrum. Strangely enough, with the short, it did make me think that time itself seems to have looped back, in this.
Well, we're gonna loop forward here, but
Okay.
I'm hoping you can put a link for the book in the chat if you manage, if that's possible. That'd be good, so that we all know where we can find the long form book, or when we can, or if you give the title, maybe that would be
Okay. Well,
one way.
I'm just going to say one more time. It's called Another Kind of Concrete, and I will try and conquer my Luddite fears and do something in the chat.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that. I'm now. I've got someone in my ear saying we need to move on, but timekeeping is not my forte. I'm not going to be pressed by the monitors. So let me turn now to. I'm trying to remember the sheet of paper in which we had the list, but I think it was May Yook who was going to be on next. Are you ready, May?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I believe your story is called, I'm going from memory, Long Way Down.
Yes.
Excellent. Would you read from it, please?
Okay. 92 days ago. Can you give me a bit of more money this month, please? I asked when I arrived at the flat. I said, I don't have much money left. I always give 2/3 of my salary to my wife, Fong. Your wife is a big spender. You should reduce her allowance. You don't even have sex with her. Why do you need more money? I just gave you 1,000 Hong Kong dollars last week. I started to cry. I tried to comfort her. Don't cry, my dear. I'll get some cash from the bank tomorrow. I smiled. Thank you, darling. Come and see what I've cooked for you tonight. She showed me a dish of stir-fried crabs with ginger and spring onions. Wow, looks delicious and smells wonderful. I wish my wife could cook like you do. Well, that's one of the differences between me and your ugly wife. You know I can offer you much more. I started to kiss my forehead. My heart melted and felt warm. This is the thing that I never get at home. I must save some more money for I and reduce the allowance for Fong. Darling, I have good news to tell you. I said to me while I was munching the crabs. Good news? Yes, tell me what it is. You'll be a father soon. I didn't expect that. Oh, my dear, what shall we do? I kissed me again and said, divorce your stupid wife and marry me. I wasn't sure what to do and put the crabs down. Let me work out a proper plan. That's the only thing that I can promise I for the time being. To be a father again? Should I be excited? How am I going to tell Fong and get her to agree to a divorce? How can I afford to support two families? with my little salary. Suddenly, I've lost my appetite for my favorite dish. Have I got myself into a crap situation again?
That's fabulous, May. You know, it's a story told with such aplomb. You know, and one of the things that I respond to is I don't identify with the guy, but the main character is not someone who's actually wanting to really make any major decisions. He just kind of rolls along with things. And that last line, why I thought it was a good end, was that, you know, or the last line of this extract is that, have I got myself into a crap situation again? You know, it makes you think of all the other crap situations this guy's probably got himself into, the kind of apathy and fecklessness, if you like. But it's quite domestic. It's a kind of 2-3 people, ménage à trois. You know, you have the guy, the wife, the girlfriend, and later on in the story, I think the list expands of people who might want to kill him. But you get the sense of it straight away. What gave you the thought to write such a story?
I think for the materials that I like to, or characters, I'm more interested. It's not like people are very famous, very prominent. I just think they have enough attention, so they don't need me to write anything about them. So my observation is more to do with people. They are more like small potatoes in society. Usually not many people pay attention to them, but when I look at their lives, and actually it's real, it's really real. And majority of people are ordinary people, especially like working class people. They may not have a good education level, or they may not have a well-paid job. They may not be professionals, but the struggle, the lives of their lives are very real. And the emotion, the conflicts between different people and characters is very real. So like about marriage, sex, and relationships, and multiple relationships, and also between parents and children. These are all the relationships is easily for any of us can relate to. So I just want to focus on small characters, but this is also important.
Yeah, I think the ordinariness of the people is one of the things that ironically makes your writing so distinctive. And I kind of it reminds me of Patricia Highsmith, actually, who writes crime fiction. And I know when I'm reading Patricia Highsmith, after a certain point, I'm kind of clasping my head because I've kind of bonded with the main character, and I'm saying, please, just don't do that. Don't open the door. Don't go into the room. Don't say what you're thinking of saying. Please, please, please don't. And of course, they always do, you know. and this character reminds me a little of that, except there's such humor in it. Did you deliberately bring this humor to it, or was it something that just happened as you were writing?
Yeah, I think for my writing, usually my themes is quite serious. But at the same time, I like to put some humorous and also some light-hearted elements inside the story as well. Because I mean, as human beings, we need both. We can't always be serious. And also the light-hearted element is important to help us to go through difficult time.
Yeah. My last question is about its origin. I know that you participated in Shots in the Dark 1, if you like, where the early part of where the later part of the story, of the now story exists. So what you've actually done is you built a front end to the original. You kind of showed them back. Did you find that confusing yourself, or were you able to navigate it okay?
I think it was okay, because it's like the first time I written the end of the story. So I just feel actually I can't really develop anymore because the story is finished. But what I could do is to tell the story before what was the end. So what happened to lead to this end? So I developed the beginning and the middle of the story to expand the story a bit more.
Yeah, I think that in doing so, you've used very different techniques in terms of how you roll the story out. And it's come together so beautifully to make a really fascinating story. I'm going to have to leave you there. But thank you ever so much for the reading and the insight into the story. I'm now going to turn to, bear with me, I'm getting some information around on my phone about who has to leave, who has not to leave, and whose internet is unstable and things like this. So you can, of course, if you have any particular tech issues, then do contact Hina, who's doing the tech behind the scenes for us. But for now, I want to turn to Abby because I know we had a rehearsal and it was a little. I know her situation, her technological situation. So let us hear from her while she's with us. I'm so amazed that we've managed to maintain the connection. It's brilliant. So Abby, your story. Could you read a little from it?
Yeah, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let me do that. Okay, and then I'll go into the story. I hope I've said it. Okay. Yep. Okay. Let me go into the story. So my story is called Weevil Kokorotin Jeffo, and it's disappeared. Why me? Okay. So as the truth entered his mind calmly, his knees hit the floor, and Olusegun, oh God, I'm so sorry. It's disappeared. Just bear with me. This is real life for us right now. I'm so sorry. It was there and then it disappeared. Okay, I'll start again. Ignore the timer. Weevil, Kokorotin Jeffo. As the truth entered his mind calmly, his knees hit the floor, and Olusegun looked up at Aderiola with abject grief on his face, reaching out to her with one arm outstretched, while his daughter, who was by his side, was trying to haul him back to his feet. But he knew that he had to stay on his knees and beg with all of his soul. Deriola, please, I beg you. You know my children are my life. Please take care of them for me. Deriola looked down at the man she called husband, scorn painted plainly on her face, but she knew to hide it from her daughter. That one adored her father like he was a god to her, and her mind worked quickly. Get up, she yelled, managing to put a twinge of panic in her voice. Don't say that. They're our children. We'll take care of them together. Hope died in Olusegun when he looked into her eyes as he heard her words, for he could see the truth behind her words, and he knew she had no love in her soul, and he wondered how he could have been so blind. His daughter managed to pull him to his feet, and Aderiola came to his side and grabbed him roughly and started to drag him out of the bedroom. Ignore. And out
We
of
have an alarm ringing somewhere, which is
yeah,
quite appropriate for a crime fiction event.
Sorry.
It's silence now.
I
Carry on.
wondered how he could have been so blind. His daughter managed to pull him to her feet, and Aderiola came to his side and grabbed him roughly and started to drag him out of the bedroom door. He knew with certainty that he was never coming back to that room, and he started to tremble. With a few steps, they got to the living room, and he sought to beg for his children again. He stopped moving and turned to Deriola, who was struggling to keep her irritation hidden. Deriola, I beg you with everything we shared. Please, you know my children are my life. Please take care of them for me. He was trying to remain calm for his daughter's sake, but she had started to whimper with fear. Baba, please don't talk like this. You will come back home and take care of us. Deriola looked over at her child, and she didn't know whether to laugh or shout. this child who never looked at her with affection, who could barely tolerate to be in the same room as her. This reflection child was the reason all of this was happening. She did this for her, but her child barely gave her a glance. All her eyes and heart was concentrated on her father.
Okay. Has anyone traced the lovely? This is such a lovely reading. It's something thick with emotion, Abby, and portent. You know, we can feel the disaster that is going to unfold, and it's it switches between kind of excavation of the internal thoughts of the characters and then the external of the dialogue that's going on. And so we get two things. We get what they're thinking and then what they're saying. And sometimes those two things don't connect, but it's so much how life is. And of course, in that disconnect is the rub or the space for the crime for the plot to fester. So, what brought you to this story?
Well, I mean, you've seen a lot of my work, as you've very kindly published some of them, and you know that I do love exploring the metaphysical together with, you know, human life and connection. And I really use what I know. So I write from a place of my reality, my truth. And then of course I embellish it and you know, put up a bit of story in it. So for me, it's a case of sometimes we could be having a conversation and we could be saying something, but thinking something different. And in between that conversation of the mouth and the internal conversation of the mind is the truth hanging in between there, where in that truth is intent, is in that truth is the real emotion, you know, and in that truth is the, you know, the process towards the accomplishment of that intention. So that fascinated me a lot, and that's why, you know, that came out in this. And I'm actually exploring it in another story that I think I shared with you briefly about. So
Yeah, it's the we I think if you remember the perhaps a mutual friend, I'm not sure, but DK Omajay, the
yes,
poet, he used to say that you know, it's all, everything is always in the gaps in between, you know,
yeah,
and that's where he always ventured with his poetry, and I feel the same way here. But when you come to write this, it's quite a family setup, and the tension between the adults over the child. Was that something that you thought would? Obviously, we all feel so strongly that the fact that the blood is always thicker than water, they say, you know, and
yeah.
so but is there a way in which you've decided, okay, I'm going to flip some of the conventions of how people roll out these family tensions? What have you changed around?
Well, the reality of life is this, because I see myself very much as a reality writer. I write from, again, a place of truth, what is really happening. And the reality is blood is not always thicker than water. There are many, many people on the planet who have firmer and stronger relationships with people that they've met alongside the way than their own family. And you know, there's that whole intention. Again, it's all about intention. There's that whole intention of wanting to keep that bond and say, oh, we're a family and we should stand by each other. And that's where you see the main character going, I'm begging you for everything that we've shared, you know, let's keep these bonds together. And meanwhile, the other person is like, look, I'm out already, I'm just waiting for you to, like, you know, be done. So, and there are many people in that situation where the society's construct is, oh, mom, dad, children, everybody together, that nuclear family is tight. But then many times it's not like that. There could be instances, again, looking at people who are not maternal or paternal. So they have children, but they have no maternal feelings towards them, or they're paternal and they have no paternal feelings. They just, well, this person came out of me and they're living their life and I'm living mine. And it's just exploring those things, and how do we work our way around that? How do we deal with it as people?
I think with the current lockdown, this kettling, this tension caused by an enclosed space and a set of relations that are not easily broken and mean so much if you do try and break them. Lockdown is probably causing this kind of scenario to play out.
Yeah. a lot of people that I've spoken with are like, I thought I loved my family, but then 7 months I was ready to murder somebody.
Well, we've all been there.
You would think that, it's a new. I live alone, so I'm so fortunate I didn't have that problem at all. But I saw families, and you do know that the statistics say that divorce went on the increase with COVID. Families got shattered a lot because the distractions of work and everything, where I can happily coexist with you because I have other things to distract me. That was all taken away. And it was, this person is now in focus. And then you really had to sit with yourself and ask yourself that question: why am I with you anyways? For some people, it worked out okay. They were able to reconnect and find love on a brand new level. But unfortunately, for a lot of other people, it was like, no, I'm out. As soon as this is over, I'm out. And it happened.
Abby, I love everything you write. And although you're out now, I hope that more work's coming from you.
Oh, yes. There's a new story I'm working on about a serial killer kidnapping another serial killer. But they didn't know that they're both serial killers, so that's where the fun is.
I'm getting my head around that one still. Okay, thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn now to Lucy, and I believe you have your story to hand, which is Girl in a Suitcase. Okay. Do you have it, Lucy?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you read it for us, please? I'll read an extract, a couple minute extract. Thank you.
Okay. 27th of December, 1977. I said goodbye to my friends by the cafe doors at 12:57 a.m. They skipped off, tumbling into a number 889 night bus. A quintet of sad faces banging on the window as it drove past. Yang Yao, come back to ours. You can crash on the sofa. But I didn't want to. I wanted to sleep in my own bed. I didn't want to wake up the next day with a mouth like desiccated coconut. So I waved to my friends away and watched the bus taillights diminish. I turned and walked down the imaginatively named High Street and slipped into Gordon Lane, the flat I shared with 3 mostly absentee roommates, nestled at the bottom of the lane, adjacent to the clattering insomnia of railway arches. I rummaged as I walked, fingers searching for keys. I could hear my mother's voice in my head. Always have your keys ready. Be prepared. Not only do they open the door, you can use them as a weapon. Stop it. Don't slouch. I continued walking and rummaging, casting my fingers wide, fishing in the dark interior of my sea of my bag. Annoyance started percolating like morning coffee. When I get annoyed, I frown. Up popped my mother's voice again. How do you ever expect to get married with a brow like that? Just as my hand was about to cradle my keys, I rounded the end of the lane and passed beneath the last streetlight and into the night. That was the moment. That was the moment something curled around my mouth. It formed a barrier, cutting off air and imposing an uncontrollable drowsiness. I was dragged along the street to a place I didn't belong, a house that every community has, the one that all the school children are terrified of, the one everyone says is haunted, the one that stands alone, a crumbling, shattered husk that should have collapsed yet defies its decaying masonry. I fell asleep. I woke. My hands and feet were bound. My brain crackled as it attempted to put the world the right way up. I reached 45 degrees and the world started to swim, as if I was inside a snow globe. I saw him. Smoke curled about his torso, writhing and weaving its threaded wisps into a halo which settled above his mass of blonde hair. Even as he smoked one, he was rolling another cigarette, a perfect cylinder rocked between his thumb and forefinger. I had one of those small, inconsequential thoughts, like puffs of hot air. I wonder if he usually uses one of those cigarette machines. He lit the freshly rolled smoke, inhaled, and then balanced the roll up on his lower lip. There was the hacksaw, now in his left hand. It was a strong, handsome hand, long, artistic fingers hugging the handle of the saw. He hacks with it. The metallic teeth of the saw part my flesh. His cigarette undulates to the back and forth rhythm as the hacksaw prizes open skin and sinew. Some resistance. The blade splinters my neck bone. He smiles, admiring his work. I was looking directly into the face of a white male, 18 or slightly older. This is the face of the person who has ended my life. An angel of death with a tiny upside-down crescent-shaped scar just above his right eyebrow. I'd never thought that an angel would have scars, but this one did. He also had a tattoo around his neck. It felt at odds given the rest of him and how he was dressed. The tattoo said, "Tear here." Ironic, as he'd torn my head from my body. I can't keep calling him him. I'll name him Apollyon. After all, wasn't Apollyon a fallen angel of death?
Thank you, Lucy. That was fantastic. What a story. The thing that struck me was actually the brooding atmosphere. You know, the dark streets, the dilapidated house. You know, the claustrophobia, the build of the tension, and then within it there are these beautiful little sparks that, for some reason, because they're outside of the brooding, haunting note, make you feel the story is real. You know, that the one of them was the thing about my mother cussing me for frowning. You know, that is like you suddenly think, yeah, that's exactly. I can feel that. I can hear the mother straight away. You know. And the other one was when the character was caught, and you have this, or the character has this random thought of, did he use one of those cigarette machines? You know, those little touches, deft little touches that make it sort of three-dimensional, make us believe this is an actual person. This is not just something from central casting or anything. It's a real person here that's having these thoughts. And then you've got the very, very complicated, for me as another writer, I would say, you did it so well, of a thing of you end up with a dead body talking to you, you know, and the sort of head scratching around that I went through. I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm quite certain, based on the fact that you're before us and here doing this interview, that you've not been a girl in a suitcase. But what gave you the idea for it?
It was based on a couple of news clips about two separate incidents of basically bodies that were shall I say that there's a kind of like a bit of an alert, a giveaway alert of decapitated and dismembered bodies who weren't known about. And I was interested in and remembering a sort of a small, not even a quarter inch in a newspaper saying dismembered body found in a suitcase, we don't know who it is. And I just started thinking, as you do, how did that particular person end up there? You know, sort of why didn't they have family? Did they have family? Who knows what's happened? So my brain just went off on that So I was quite interested in trying to find a narrative to maybe explain that.
Yeah, I thought you pulled it off really well, and the writing is entirely riveting on the page. I know, reading it, seeing you, hearing you read it today, you know, I thought, wow, you know, you bring it across in a live situation so well too. And I know you're both a playwright and an actor. Is there let me try and pretend that I can reach certain heights with you two. You may have seen my promotional video where I tried to do a bit of acting. Please stop laughing. And I also have written plays. But what I found myself when I wrote plays a lot of times, I found myself slanting towards dialogue a lot and not quite being able to nail the description because of the dialogue muscle I was building was so strong, if I may flatter myself. But in your own writing, you know, it is very, very strong descriptively. But did you have to did you make a conscious effort to work on description, or is it something that was always in the background of your creative sort of practice?
Funny enough, it's something that I have to curtail when I'm writing plays. So I have to make that action as opposed to stage directions, and it's a good exercise for me because I think when I first started writing as a kid, I was more into sort of story narratives than dialogue. So it's kind of like, for me, gone round the other way. So it's actually quite interesting, but actually being able to sort of use the tools that you have, writing short stories, I mean, I found it a real challenge in a way of kind of like trying to get from A to Z or wherever it is you need to be in a very short space of time, as it were, but trying to give it that depth and that richness. Whereas in a play you have, you know, kind of like 80 odd pages through which you can kind of like take people on a journey. So it's a great exercise, and I must admit, when I, you know, sort of after having been contacted by you and say, are you up for it? I was thinking, I'm not sure whether I can do that, but so I'm glad that I managed to pull that one off.
Yeah, I was just rereading this line about the thing curling around the throat, and I thought, you know, it's the choice of verb there, you know, to curl. You know, it's not grab or gripped. You know, it's there's a sort of sinuousness to curl. And this is the craft of words that I know when I've been working on some plays, and you just go, you know, 9 p.m. night, then on with the dialogue. You know, you don't bother with any of this grip curling around their tender throat or anything. No time for that. You're treading on the director's territory, they tell you. You know, so yeah, it's a difficulty really to move from one genre to the other, and you've done it superbly. I can easily see this as a kind of spooky film, actually. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'm going to turn now. I'm doing a quick glance at the notes, see if I've been given any further instruction. But I'm going to turn now to, if I may, to Sandra. Are you available, Sandra?
Yep.
You have your. Do you have your story?
I have, yes. It should be just under shy of 2 minutes. I'll try not to go on for too long. So this is called Chameleon.
Sandra, just before you begin, where's your microphone? Could you come a little closer to the mic, maybe, in some way?
Is this better?
Is it a little better, people? Yeah, okay.
Okay, excellent. Okay, this is called A slow and steady clicking of fingers emerges out of the void. Hello, Carlo. There you are. I press my palm down into scattered gravel, feel its cool temperature against my skin. Instinct brings it to my head to dissipate the heat there. Don't move, relax. The smooth cadence of a female voice comes through a vapor. Taking a deep breath and let go. I breathe in. The pounding in my head evaporates, replaced by a weightless ebb, floating. I'm a dot of simple insignificance. A delicate warmth infuses my body. I think of when I first arrived in England, before meeting Ruby and having the twins. I would sleep in affordable hotels. Against the creeping winter, even the most modest establishments provided 15 top duvets. And after long days of walking high streets in search of employment, I looked forward to drifting off into a dream of freedom, airborne above the Pacific Ocean. The young woman's voice arrives again. Her accent is familiar, yet has a hint of something else. You must travel widely. She doesn't sound like the loud, drunk customers that I overhear from the restaurant's kitchen. How peculiar. I have lived in confusion for the last 7 years, questioning why I've never connected with the locals. The English don't speak the language in the way I was taught back home. I often listen to them while I cook, with the back doors open, occasionally glancing out at the empty car park and the grey derelict buildings opposite the Golden Palace. Broken windows serve as entry points for pigeons that had moved into the abandoned offices when government aspiration for business regeneration was overrun by wildlife. My heart races with excitement. I can easily start a business here, but it would attract the wrong type of customer. Prices in Manchester are expensive too, and I can't have a repeat of what I left behind. Hello? The intrusive clicking of fingers again.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you very much, Sandra. So tell us a little bit about the story's origins. How did you come up with it?
Well, this is a character that has lived with me for quite a few years, and I have tried to put her, well, actually, I changed the perspective. I tried to put this this particular lady in different scenarios. And I'm also a trained hypnotherapist, and I wanted to play with the trauma of being hypnotized, but being hypnotized in a cruel way.
Okay.
It's like a romantic story.
And are you? Is this one of your early works, or have you done other writing? Have you written any other stories or anything? Or is this one of your? Are you just starting out? I'm trying to work out. Have you got anything you want to plug? Is where I'm going.
At the moment, I haven't got anything to plug at the moment. This is one of my earlier pieces of writing. I have had some highly commended short stories published, and so yes, it's actually one that I want to actually develop as a collection of work as well with this character.
All right, lovely. So turning to the story, I think your rendering of it was quite interesting in this click, click, click. Did you know when you wrote it that you would have that sonic effect, or was it something you just innovated today?
No, yeah, I just sort of like did that today. I think when we were going through the editing process, you actually added that click, click, click in there.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Which I thought was really good. I wanted to sort of like work with layers of emotion in the story. So I wanted to really layer it. So even though I might use some hypnotic kind of language within the process, I wanted to also have it layered emotionally as well. So looking at it from different angles, you know, different points of view. So yeah, that's right.
And now Manchester, have you rendered it in a way that would delight the Mancunians, do you think?
I hope so.
What do you think of place when you write? You know, is that a kind of a thing that is uppermost in your mind as a writer, or what do you start with, the character or the place?
I would normally start with the character. I try to put the character in a situation that is going to probably repel them. So so I always start with character. I do also as well like place. So for this character, he has come over from the Philippines. He's in Manchester, but it feels so different to him. He has run away from a crime, basically, without sort of like giving spoilers. So he's run away from something that he has done in his past, and somebody is coming to get revenge. So I wanted to make I wanted to make him uncomfortable in the fact that he is somewhere that he doesn't really know, even though he's been over for a while. You know, for 7 years, I still wanted it to still feel uncomfortable, but now retribution.
Yeah, I've sometimes thought that you know, you mentioned specifically some places like opposite Golden Palace, Cheetham Hill, and this is some writers vague out the location. You know, they give you an atmosphere, but they don't tell you exactly where you are. And there's a sort of the realism's claim to authenticity, if you like, is sometimes delivered by those detailed and references that a reader can look up on Google or whatever and try and map the story, you know, and in that way they feel that it's more authentic as a story. So but the story doesn't exist just in one location either. So in that sense, it's quite a postmodern story. It's about the movement of people as well. So thank you very much. I'm getting more prompts saying we're gonna be here at midnight, you know. But thank you very much. It's an intriguing story, and one which is I've read and reread a number of times, always finding new things coming out of it. So thank you for that. I saw that Yvonne was coming and then going. And coming and going, I was worried that I might lose her completely. So, and because Shahira is someone who has the authority to sack me, she's on the board, the Cultureword Management Board. So I will risk that phenomenon, but perhaps you will allow me to invite our guests first to speak. So in which case, if that's okay with you, Shahira, then we can turn to Yvonne and ask Yvonne if you have a story to hand.
I do indeed. I'm not going to read from the beginning because I had read that before in the shorter one, so I'm going to start a little bit past that, if that's all right.
Okay, no problem. You go for it.
All right. It's nearly dawn. When the sun comes up, it'll be moving on day. Already. Like they didn't just now finish all the burials from the last one. A bunch of us set up a petition. It didn't seem right to start talking about who was moving on with the moved on not even gone yet. The committee said now was not the time to reinvent the wheel. Like they hadn't been changing, tweaking, and bending the rules ever since the beginning. If the system worked like it was intended to, there wouldn't be as many of them timers left in the first place. Can't tell me there's no rule bending going on. We weren't trying to get them to stop it, even though, despite what the timers say, Curdle Creek's probably the only town still doing it. We just wanted them to do it properly, with the sending off. What's the point in moving on if you don't get a proper send-off? They said with so many births, the outgoing needed to be nearly double the number of the year before, which was higher than the year before that. Soon, there won't be hardly nobody left. It seems like yesterday, Mother was telling me to wipe the dust off my shoes like I had good sense. She would have said a whole lot more about it if it wasn't for the knock. She paused for a minute, lost her train of thought. Then she took a breath, swallowed, and kept right on talking like she didn't hear it. The knocking got louder. Mother's voice did too. It was like they were arguing. Knock, knock, like I was saying, knock, knock, this system, knock, knock, works to keep the good people good. She was babbling, telling me all the things she hadn't ever bothered to say. All the things I'd wished she had told me when I was young enough to believe it, like why we moved to this damn town in the middle of nowhere and why we stayed. I half expected her to tell me she loved me. No one in Turtle Creek ever says that. When she'd run out of useful things to say, what bills needed paying, how long meat can last before going rancid, how to load a rifle, she started talking nonsense. How often to dust the china, mow the yard, pay remembrance. I offered to get the door. That would have almost killed her. Would have shamed her near enough to death to do the job. It's meant to be the mover answering the door, inviting death in for a cup of tea.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much, Yvonne, for that. It's a real eerie story, and it's. We were just talking with Sandra about place a little bit, and in this case, the title's Turtle Creek. Moving on, it kind of hangs in a kind of, it's not fully determined where this place is in the, certainly in the extract you read and perhaps in the story itself. And it also has this sense of kind of parallel worldy, you know, that this is something that is happening somewhere, but we might not ever have noticed that it's happening. It's this setup. Was it easy to set that story up with that kind of parallel weirdness, if you like, or was it something that you'd experienced or worked on or was familiar to you from other writers?
Well, I'll say that. So first, the inspiration for the story. So this one was inspired by the shorter story that, that I wrote for the first one, which was inspired by Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. And for me, it's just that idea. There's this rural town and they hold on to these traditions, even though they don't know where they came from and they don't know why anymore. But there's still certain things, even though parts of the tradition have been lost and they can't even find the basket that they used to use, but they still hold on to part of this tradition. And it's a really sinister one in The Lottery. And so I kind of have been returning to that idea. Part of it is about the cost that we pay to be in society and the cost that others pay for the lifestyles that we have. And I know now with COVID, especially, like I've been returning back to this story. It's something in the voice and in the place that feels really comforting to me in a way. Like it is sinister and it is slightly dark. And even the longer version of it, the novel that I'm working, that's kind of inspired by that. And also 1919 America. It's just something I keep returning to around the ways that we treat one another and the costs that other people have for like the things that I enjoy.
I read somewhere that when I was studying speculative fiction, actually, that the technique sometimes in creating a word wheel is to make sure everything else is pretty normal. You know, that the milk gets delivered, the trees grow the way trees grow. You know, the kebab, in my case, you know, the kebab keeps turning, what have you. And so when the weirdness happens, it doesn't jolt. It's just part of the world's normality. And I think that tone of this is normal, you know, whereas I've just been asked to write a story involving a superhero, and that goes the other way, you know, that there's got to be a kind of dun, but our character has this amazing power, you know, which is, it sort of announces itself. This one's very much creeps upon you.
See, I like that though. I like that there's so much, I don't like that there is, but there is so much, there's so many things going on around us that we either don't always notice or that we notice, but we just kind of shrug off. And so I think for me, at least this story it lets me look at, one, the things that people might have turned a blind eye to, and what do we accept and what do we say, well, okay, as long as it's not too close, as long as it's not me, then it'll be fine. But then also, I think for me, this was a chance for me to kind of write New Jersey. So I haven't named like the name of the place, like I made this one up, but I grew up in Sweetwater, New Jersey. And so it just, I think my memory of it is foggy and hazy. And there was a creek there that smelled like really awful, but it smelled like rotten eggs, not dead bodies. But what if it did? So I think a lot of that kind of comes out with that what if.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think Deborah earlier on was mentioned the some news item from today, tomorrow. There was some um, awful things that may have happened at a hospital involving a nurse and death, and you think, wait a minute, this may have been happening while everyone else thought everything was totally normal, and so it does rather weird up. You know, I start looking at all of you on these panels, thinking, you know, you're doing a good job of looking normal, but you know,
you have to do your research sometime, don't you? How do you know what a body sounds like when it drops in the forest? And, you know, you do a little research.
Yeah. Kushik, meanwhile, appears to have been nobbled. That empty chair. You know, I sent one of my editors round. I didn't like his paragraphing.
I'm sorry, that was funny.
But yeah, tell us about your book. You're the one that's been published, because I think it's such a great story, and if people want to read more of you, there is a novel out, isn't there?
Yes, thank you. So Remembered was my debut, and it came out in February 2019 here in the UK and in February 2020 in the US. So it's a story about a mother whose son has been beaten by police, and it is 1910 Philadelphia. And the mother, along with the ghost of her dead sister, they are set on a journey to come and lead him home through stories of how their lives as emancipated slaves, and some of the things that they hadn't told him while they had the chance before. So it's about leading someone home, and the legacy of slavery and the parallels, the ways that we're still living some of those legacies. But ultimately, it's about motherhood and family and history and stories.
It's a phenomenal novel. Absolutely. You know, I read it and reread it, and of course, I live in two states. As a reader, I'm loving it. And then as somebody, a craft practitioner, a writer, you know, I'm like, how did she do that? Let me go back and why am I feeling this? What did you do? You know, you know, I take my hat off if I'd want to. It's so brilliantly crafted, but it's so moving, and it's an important novel. So yeah, check that out if any of you have the opportunity. It's a fantastic novel. I'm so glad we got our short story, or the short story from you. You're very generous of you. I'm now going to turn to Shahira, and just before I do. After we've talked with Shahira, heard from her, I'll kind of leave the floor to you to talk among yourselves if you want. I'll mute my mic. I can see the mic system is working now, and then we can just give it a few minutes for that, because I know that in my grand plans never come off, do they? You know, there was this chat session at the end. So thank you for staying with us, to the participants who are here. And maybe Kushik's had a bottle of rum or something, and he's actually on the floor. And you'll see a hand just come up, wave or click. But okay, enough. Without any further ado, let me turn to Shahira, and you have a story, Shahira, called "The Power of a Lie."
Yeah, thank you.
Can you read from it for us, please?
Yes, I can. I've got it here. Amongst the familiar and anonymous faces of work colleagues and acquaintances saying their last goodbyes to my father, he was the only one that I recall. That said, if it weren't for his tight embrace and the genuine looking tear in his eye as he offered his condolences, I might not have remembered him 3 days later when I was waiting for a taxi. He pulled over and offered me a lift. I told him I was going to Baharistan, which apparently was on his way. His car, a white Pecan Javanon, overtaken by the stench of lingered tobacco, had miniature prayer beads dangling from its rear view mirror. He had a tattoo on his upper arm, mostly covered by the short sleeve of his off-white t-shirt. He didn't seem the type that my father would associate with. I asked him how he knew my father, and his response added to the air of mystery that surrounded him. We must talk about that, but not now. He suggested we meet up after the 7th day of my father's departure ceremony. His response to such a simple and basic question didn't make sense. I don't normally care for people who make everything more complex than necessary. Any other time, I would have made an excuse and walked away. But how could I miss the opportunity of knowing something about one of my late father's unusual acquaintances? I agreed to meet up. The only information that he offered on that occasion was his name, Majid. I'm gonna stop right here.
Okay, well, thank you for that reading, Shahira. And the story, as it develops, if I remember it right, is about somebody who learns that the people or the person who believes is their biological parent or parents is not, and the shock of that, and the emotional conflict around it. It's a story of really intricate and complex emotions. And as a reader, you're pulled backwards and forwards, and you stand in the main character's shoes, thinking, what would I do in that situation? How would I feel? And for that reason, it's a really engaging story. But it's also quite unusual. How did you dream it up, or where did you find it?
I think it was Abby who said she's a reality writer. I am more of a similar nature. I tend to write what I see around me. Obviously, it's a fiction, so all the characters and the events are fiction, but the actual rooted, the events are rooted in reality. And this story is also based on something that I saw. Funny enough, as a child, I think I just moved to secondary school, and the memory is kind of hazy there, but it was such a shocking thing to witness that I remembered it for many years, and I never knew that I could still recall that until I came to write it. I remember there was a conflict between an armed force, I don't know, they were called terrorists, and a safe house was raided back home. Everyone in that house was killed during the raid. Only a baby survived. And funny enough, the person who was reporting this, who was one of the people who was involved in this thing, was talking about the event whilst holding the baby in his hand, and he was trying to be extremely kind to the baby and saying, "Oh, calm down, stay calm." And he was saying that how helpful they were and how good they are to everyone else, because they managed to get rid of all this less desirable people, let's say. And I remember as a child, I thought, gosh, that baby, does that baby know that the person who's actually holding him is the person who's killed his parents? And like, I think, was it Ivan or someone else who said, what if, you know, that thing stays in my mind, you know, what if that baby grows and finds out what the event was? How did he end up in this man's arm? And I tried to start that event and work backwards, if you like, to come up with the story and what happened to.
I think one of the great things that you've done in this story, though it may be my reading, I may be wrong, is that, and what literature, what narrative can do, is you don't fully take sides. You know, whereas, let us argue with someone. Let me find someone to argue with. Whereas, say, poets, you know, they have an opinion and they have a voice. You know, with narrative, you can have different perspectives. And, you know, you don't have to say, this is me, the author's opinion in these things. You know, and I love the way it kind of shifts around. And I think as it shifts around, as the reader, I start to understand the people who brought the baby up, their perspective, while not telling him that the circumstances by which they acquired him or came to look after him. And then I can understand the anger of him as he grows up and finds out that actually his whole biography is false. And then despite the let's say the barbarity, the depravity, the viciousness of the circumstances, there is that. It's a minor mitigation, but there is that thing that the baby, you know, we think the baby is innocent. You know, whatever was the parents are doing, you know, I didn't kill the baby. You know, now that might be a hard sell in a law court, you know, but at least there is something there that, you know, there is an element of humanity is a little slither of it, but you know, I love the way it moved around, and I thought that was something that that distinguished your story so well. And were you aware of it as you were writing that you would have a line, or that the line, the moral line, would shift and move all the time, or did it just happen?
Thank you. Yes, I think that's where the power of literature is, because in this today's world, we all have our perspectives, and quite often some of us are sticking to that so rigidly, and we don't want to see things from the other, you know, side. And I think literature gives us that opportunity. And I think as a writer, I really love to play with writing in such a way that I can go in and out of different perspectives, if you like. And as a reader, I quite like reading things that are like that. I see that as a practice for the real life. If we could do that with a piece of fiction and what we read, think about what happens if we could do that in our everyday life. And I think quite a lot of problems and conflict can be solved that way when we learn or try to see things from different perspectives. So I do try to not to take sides, but I don't know what proportion of it is deliberate, what proportion of it is subconsciously driven. I don't know, but thanks for saying that.
It's also quite difficult in a short story. In a novel, you've got a lot more room for this switching, but in a short story, it's quite hard to pull off. I now realize we're smoking the engine of the of the meeting technology, and we may be cut off at some point. But I'd just like to invite you. I've been moderating for the hour, but I just like if any of you have questions to one another, not to me, while you're all here. Let's try this. It may work, it may not. But you see, Kushik, he's back now.
Oh, yes.
The thing was, he doesn't want me talking. As soon as I show up, he's back.
He's alive! He's alive!
We were worried.
Rumbled. It's a fair cop goal. You got me there.
All right. I'm just saying, if anyone's got questions.
Worried there.
Replenished.
I was like,
replenished. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I had to get some fuel, but
I'm gonna mute my mic so that you can visually see that it's the time just for you to talk, to ask any questions you have of one another. You got about 5 minutes. If that flies, great. If it doesn't, hey, we're all experimenting.
I have 2 questions to May and to Shahira, if you don't mind. May, when you were reading your story, I actually found myself physically salivating as you were describing the food. You know, food is a big thing for me. And Pete would tell you when he was putting the compilation of I think it's called Food of Love or something like that. It was an anthology, and I wrote in it, and I actually wrote 7 recipes, you know, for breaking up with someone. And so food is a big thing for me. So when you were writing that piece, you know, because you're putting in the human story of, you know, this person wanting the other, you know, this character who is so undecided to make a decision, but yet there's also this almost enticement of food. Was that a deliberate thing? So that's the question I want to ask you. Did you really, like, was it a conscious decision on how you were, you know, describing the food? And was there like a deliberate significance of it? So that's my question to you. And then Shahira, because you said you're very much a writer like myself, so you write from reality. And, you know, Pete said something about, you know, being that person who, you know, trying not to put in your own point of view and just like almost reporting. So you, as an observational writer, as a reality writer, do you find yourself just being caught out, like maybe shopping or something, and you see something and automatically a story is already budding in your head? You're like, oh, this is the piece of conversation I got privy to, but what's the story behind that conversation? Do you find yourself doing that? Because I find myself doing that a lot. I'm a nosy Parker. I hear people, and next thing I'm creating a story. So does that happen with you? So if May would answer first and then you.
I think it's for different reasons. I mention about the food and the dish, and I want to make it more domestic. The life, why this man have two families, 2 women, and the other thing is it's almost like a cliche. People will say, oh, if a woman can cook, you can use food to control a man. Something. Yeah. So you make them feel good about with delicious food. And also the other thing is about sex. The sex show fulfillment for the man, for the man's desire, because this is the 2 things he couldn't find from his wife. That's why this mistress can offer him what he lacked in his own family and marriage relationships. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll quickly jump in and respond to my question. Yeah, just like you, I actually love listening and taking hints, if you like. But I think most of the time is, even I'm not conscious, I hear something and that triggers the whole, train of thoughts for me. That's why I tend to walk around with a pen and paper all the time. So
we're so alike.
Yeah, well, funny enough, for me, places do have that effect too. So I walk into a room and then I sense something and or feel the urge to write something. So yeah, people and places, I would say, definitely.
Thank you so much. I feel so better about myself because I thought I was crazy. Because especially when I was working in Manchester, I actually did a whole series of train journey where I'll get on the train, and it's not that I purposely want to listen in, but the conversation is loud and I hear it. And next thing I'm writing this short story around it. So it's good to know that I'm not the only one who walks around with a pen and, you know, like picks up on people's
Fantastic.
conversation.
But can you just say the fact that someone else is like you doesn't equate you from being crazy? You both could be in that situation. But
Oh my God. That was really good, and then you ruined it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, is there any other question?
I just have one thing that I wanted to say, which was it's actually to you, Peter, and that's I really appreciated your very laissez-faire, so laid back, you were horizontal approach to the editing. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was a massive vote of confidence. And
thank you. Thank you.
And I thought you handled it with fabulous grace. So thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. I was, when you hit the word horizontal, I was imagining you back on the floor again and the empty chair. You know? But I'm glad to see you vertical again.
I'm a bit of a lightweight like that, but no.
Can I also say thank you so much for putting this together, because we don't always get to launch, especially if your piece is in an anthology. You don't always get to have an event that feels like a launch, that feels like a celebration. So thank you so much for letting us celebrate together and celebrate with you.
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, it's the first time we've done it, and I think it's gone really well. I'd love to keep the conversation going. I'm going to do a short end note now, but by all means, we'll still be in touch. The book, Shots in the Dark 2, is available on the Issue platform, and on the YouTube chat or comment column, you'll be able to see the link to it. To the writer who have shared this space with me, thank you ever so much for your stories. I have great hopes you're going to go on and astonish the world with your brilliance. I think we've really set down a marker here. It's a really high quality publication, and that's all thanks to you. I'm next perhaps going to be in touch with you about continuing the project in using a slightly different form. But that's my cliffhanger for you for today. I'm not going to tell you quite what that form is. But for now, yep, you can find Shots in the Dark 2 on the Issue platform. Look for that. And I'm sure if you follow us on Facebook or you check out YouTube or any other social media platform, you'll find out more about what we're doing, what we've done, and how we love to be in the world. It's been lovely being with you today, all of you. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to now say goodbye. I'm not quite sure what the convention is for how you sign off on these things.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. And here we go.
Bye.